In this lecture, let's try performing some basic arithmetic operations in Python. So one of the basic arithmetic operations which you could perform in Python is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So let's try doing that. So make sure that your Python shell has actually started and you have this particular arrow sign here. And then let's try performing simple addition. So I would say 10 plus 9. And if you write this line of code, and as soon as you hit enter as Python, shell works in an interactive mode, you'll right away get the result as 19. Now, let's try performing some sort of a subtraction. So let's say 10 to 3. As you can see, we get the result right away. Now, you could also subtract a larger number from a smaller one. Now, just like subtraction, we could perform the multiplication operation as well. So I could say 2 multiplied by 6. And in order to perform the multiplication operation, we need to use this asterisk sign, which we have on our keyboard. So if I do that now, we get the result of the multiplication operation. Now, along with the simple basic operations, we could also perform some complex mathematical expressions as well. So for example, we could write a complex mathematical expression like 4 multiplied by 6 multiplied by, and then in brackets I could have some other operation like an addition. So I could say 28 plus 5. So Python is also able to execute some complex mathematical expressions as well. And right away you are going to have a result. Now, let's try performing basic division. So let's say I would say 100 divided by 4. So as soon as I try to perform this division, as you can see, I get an output as 25.0. So whenever you perform a division operation, you will get the result in a floating point number. So a float or a floating point number is nothing, but it's basically a number which has a decimal point and has some digits after it. So let's say if you do not want to perform this kind of a division where you get a floating point number, but instead you want an integer, in that particular case, what you could do is that you could use something which is called as a floor division. So in order to perform a floor division, I could say 100. And instead of using a single forward slash for division, I will use a double forward slash, and double forward slash actually represents the floor division. So now if I try to perform this kind of a division, as you can see, instead of getting a floating point value, now I actually get an integer value. So this is the basic difference between a normal division and a regular division. And you'll also be noticing that when we perform a division, we are actually getting the result as the quotient, and we are not getting the remainder here. So we are going to find out how to get the remainder later. One more thing that you need to understand is that in Python, whenever you try to divide any given number by 0, you're going to get a divide by 0 error, and divide by 0 error is an error which we get in almost all the programming languages if we try dividing any number with 0. So let's take a random number and let's try dividing it by 0. If I try to do that, as you can see, I will get a 0 division error which says division by 0, which is basically a divide by 0 error. Henceforth, you need to make sure that while writing Python program accidentally, you should not be dividing any number by 0, because that's going to give you a divide by 0 error and your program might stop working now after this. Let's try performing some mathematical operations with a floating point number. So as we all know, a floating point number is nothing but a number with a decimal point. So you could perform arithmetic operations with that as well. So let's say if I say 14.0 multiplied by a number like 4. So when you perform arithmetic operations between a floating point number and an integer, the result is always going to be a floating point number. So as you can see, we get a floating point number as the result. Now if I use integers on both the ends, so if I say 14 multiplied by 4, obviously I'm going to get an integer. And the same applies to other arithmetic operations as well. So if I say 10.0 minus 4, I'll still get 6.0 as a result, which is a floating point number. So we have discussed the basic arithmetic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, as well as flow division. So in the next lecture, let's try performing some complex mathematical operations like finding the exponent of a number and finding modulus. So let's learn how to do that in the next one.